Good morning, everyone. My name is Ojasvi. So, in the last 3 months, rather short months, we at VW Business World and our gaming vertical, VW Gaming World, has delved very deep into the gaming sector in India. That is at present marked for its high growth potential. But it is also just 3 months since I have actively been reported on this very dynamic sector. And today I join more as a student, learning from some of the most respected industry experts. So we are deliberating today on the status of Indian gaming and where will the growth come from. So without wasting another second, I would like to now begin this discussion. I would like to begin with Girish on this, considering the insightful report KPMG has brought in on gaming. So Girish, just setting the base of the conversation, can you just quickly summarize the report and highlight the growth drivers that fundamentally change the way gaming industry is operating in India right now? Over to you, Girish.
Thanks so much, Ojasvi, for inviting me to the session today, and good morning to my co-panelists as well as everybody else listening in. Like Ojasvi mentioned, gaming as a sector is something that has been going through a serious boom, in particular over the last 12 to 18 months or so. But the reality is that this is a story which has actually been evolving and evolving very rapidly, even much before that, right? So gaming as a sector has a very long history. But in India, if you really look at it, it's gaming at scale, the way we typically talk about, is something that is maybe 5 years old, with smartphone proliferation really driving a lot of the underlying growth and metrics, right? And while we tend to talk about the pandemic as a trigger for growth, this was a space which was already seeing a lot of growth as well as strong user engagement and user metrics even before the pandemic. What the pandemic actually did is sort of start creating habit formation with a lot of users, where you actually ended up with a lot of new users, but also more importantly, you had existing guys playing more, playing longer, and starting to spend more, right? The worry when all of this was happening, particularly during the initial lockdown last year, was that this was going to be really temporary, and all the numbers would fall off back once the lockdown lifted and life came back to some level of normalcy, right? And when people started going back to work and stuff like that. And while we did see some drop in some of these user metrics, clearly across most parameters, post-pandemic, the operating metrics are at much higher levels than what they were pre-pandemic. What this tells us is there is a certain level of habit formation that has started to happen. And while you will always have peaks when you have situations like this happening, with even the current lockdowns, once things settle down, we will expect to see greater usage across the entire demographics around gaming in India. So I think that's one key element that came out for us, right? The other key element, which is again not so much of a surprise, but clearly very similar to other digital businesses in India, where the user and the usage tends to peak in advance of monetization, right? So we still probably don't see as great monetization metrics yet from India as we've seen in some of the other markets, and there are some very fundamental reasons for such differences being existing. But the reality is that because gaming is still a sunrise sector, it is something that is still evolving. We think that in the next couple of years, the monetization metrics are going to catch up much faster than they have been in the past, right? The other very relevant point that I would also bring out, therefore, is that unlike most other digital businesses that Indian organizations have built up, gaming is a space which really doesn't have any barriers to entry, right? So from a user perspective and from a supply side perspective, effectively both the world is your opportunity, but at the same time the world is also your competition, right? So which effectively means that as an Indian studio, you need to be able to come out with products which can not only compete with the best of the content in the world, but also more importantly, engage Indian audiences in a way which probably Indian studios and Indians will understand best, right? So this effectively means that I think that evolution is happening, and we probably need to see that happen at a much larger scale. In addition to potentially solving, more than distribution, access and discovery constraints which most Indian studios are currently sort of operating under, right? Last point I would make in terms of our takeaways is that when it comes to monetization, we also need models which are tweaked and modified from an Indian context, right? So whether it is price points, whether it is emphasis or a greater emphasis on incentivized ads and other models which effectively give consumer value for money when it comes to the kind of spends that they have to do, whether directly or indirectly, as also models like multi-gaming platforms, which we are seeing sort of uniquely, evolve in India, are also models which sort of seem to work better with an Indian mindset and Indian context. So I think these are 3 or 4 areas that we sort of felt that are need to evolve slightly differently than the way they've evolved globally for us to be able to monetize that in India.
I guess everyone would agree with that pandemic has actually triggered the growth of gaming. So we are considering here your report where many gaming companies are now operating higher than the pre-pandemic phase. I hope Manav and Pawan here both would agree with me on that. So we know investors were already interested, as Dr. Subi Chaturvedi in the last session said it in a way that it has become a very serious sector now. Developers were already looking to build strong output from India, particularly in the last 3-4 years. But what about the supply side? We obviously observe the trend of increase in user base. But gaming is growing for everyone. So how are gaming companies like Octo and Winzo, we have them here, ensuring to bring out strong products when A, the gaming industry is bringing equal opportunities for all the companies alike, and B, to stand out with strong products, especially those ones which are more localized. Why don't we hear from Manav on this first?
So I think what you raise is a very, very pertinent point. And I think when I was launching Alt with Ekta, one of the key learning was that India is not one homogeneous market of 1.2 billion people, right? And Samir coined this term very, very glibly called that India is a wide chasm between Nagin and Narcos, right? So there is still 100 to 100 million people who would be skewed towards English premium, consumption, whereas there is significant larger audience which is waiting to latch on to these newer trends, right? And newer consumption patterns. I think to that extent, what Octo has been doing very, for last 5 years is invest heavily on, creating new games and sort of also investing a lot in data science and data engineering. I think what Dr. Chaturvedi also spoke about, where gaming companies no more a gaming studio, but it's largely a place where we intend to understand human behavior at scale, right? And especially when the human behavior is not homogeneous human behavior. So what we did, is we sort of launched our largest game called Teen Patti, which is still the chartbuster. I mean, if you go to top 5 grossing apps on both Sensor and App Annie, you will realize that from an Indian studio standpoint, we are the only ones there, right? So we localize that in 5 languages. Thankfully, because we are in a category like cards and casino, we don't need to sort of localize the entire game, because at the end of the day, people do recognize cards and people do recognize numbers across the languages. Second, what we did was we said, why don't we also implement something called voice chat, right? So when Girish was talking about new formats of monetization, one of the key insights that we got was that we had some incoming interest from brands for a game like Tombola, right? Wherein on a public table, you can, as high as 200 players can play synchronously, and on a private table, you can actually take it more, right? So imagine what a Lakme Lever or a Mac or Hawkins can sort of say, hey, you know what, if you have 80% of this game consumed by women, right? And if you give me that 1 minute of sort of before game start or in between the game, and I can talk about the new SKU or new brand or new shade of the lip color that I want to launch, right? What is the price for that, right? And you get this focus audiences every 1.5 hours, right? Because a typical Tombola game lasts for about an hour. So I think those are the things that sort of motivated us to do more. Now, while we were doing that for India, which was sort of going into the regional space, we also launched 2 new games. One was called Octo Poker, which is what you can see on my at Draw. Now, Octo Poker, I'm very happy to share that last 60 days that we have launched and scaled it up, it has not only scaled in India, and it has also sort of found its space in heartland of poker called US markets, right? So if you look at our D7 and D15 or D30 retention numbers, we are pretty much at par with a Zynga Poker or a WSOP or a Poker Stars, right? So sort of address the entire spectrum, not only one particular niche, but how do you sort of start to create offerings and keep going back to consumer at large is what we have been at it. Happy to answer any specific that you may have.
Thank you, Manav, for that. I guess even Pawan has the point of view on that, especially on the localized product.
Yeah, thanks, Ojasvi. Hello, everyone. So let me first put some context, right? So Winzo as a company is only 3.5 years old. We literally started witnessing the smartphone revolution that Jio brought in. And of course, post-COVID was pretty much fuel to fire, right? So there were, and being an ex-consultant, and both me and my co-founder being ex-consultants, the way we approached at creating something like Winzo was also very, very, very top-down, very, I would say, opportunistic. So there were some statistics, right? For example, there are about 11 or 12 billion mobile games that get downloaded every year in India. And it's being downloaded by roughly 300 million odd people, which means on an average, a typical Indian smartphone user downloads 25 to 30 games in a year, but they only have 4 to 5 games in their devices, right? So there's a very high installation and an uninstallation rate. People are spoiled for choices. And it was a very, very, I would say, opportune time to launch a super app for gaming, a go-to gaming app that can literally offer a wide array of gaming options. And like we all have agreed here, India is not really one country, right? It's as good as a continent. I mean, each state in itself, you can say, is equivalent to a European country. And the preferences by age group, by gender, by region, that really diversify. And offering a gamut of these games on a platform has really worked out well for us. That has been layered by a layer of microtransactions. So again, I think monetization, as you all know, up until I would say last 3 or 4 years, were mainly relied on either in-app purchase or advertisements. But now what we have done is we have enabled people to really pay as small as 2 rupees and participate in any game, right? And that has really unlocked a lot of potential for monetization for us. We don't play the number game in the sense that people don't really have to invest large sums, right? And that's something that's very understandable from the Indian audience as well. When you're talking about tier 2, tier 5 audience who's just come on the smartphones, they're not going to spend thousands of rupees. But if they're spending even, let's say, tens of rupees or, 50s of rupees on a daily basis, but there are these millions of such people, that actually contributes to a fairly large number. And that's something that we've seen worked out really well for us. And we've tried a lot, right? We've tried with subscriptions, we've tried with microtransactions, we've done like a fair bit of experimentation there. And it's worked out well for us. And of course, I think from day zero, we were very clear that we need to build a product for Bharat. And that's why vernacularization has totally stood out for us, right? Today, we are available in 12 languages. In fact, 13. Only yesterday, we introduced Malayalam as well. So, and it's the impact. I mean, a lot of people say that games don't really have languages, right? Here at Winzo, we do not agree with that, because vernacularization has totally differentiated us in the sense that both in terms of, and it's not really just about converting strings into different languages, right? It's really about understanding the context in which that person is operating, right? Personalizing the games as per the person's geography. I mean, there are serious trends that can allude that, let's say, for example, folks who are based out of West Bengal, they usually like to play carom on our platform a lot more than folks who are based out of Maharashtra, who are more interested in, let's say, a game of cricket. And then you layer it on top with a lot of social gamification, a lot of social engagement, where you enable audio, where you enable video, and then you suddenly see, a lot of people being matched who are from the similar geography, playing the same game with obviously relevant skill levels, and now also interacting in their own local dialects. That's a wonderful way, or I would say that's really what our Indian users are now looking at. And some of the even international, I would say, gaming companies like Free Fire or Battleground India offered those kind of options, right? People play those games because they want to hang out with their friends while playing those games, and that's why they have been really, really successful. So I feel these are some of the ingredients that has worked out well for us and are going to really shape up the Indian gaming revolution from here on.
Thank you, Baba. Thank you for speaking on what exactly worked for Winzo, and also Mana, what exactly is localization meaning for the industry. And as I want to quote Girish here, that as he said, there are no barriers to entry in the industry now. So the industry has given opportunities to various sectors, even outside the ecosystem. As they say, make hay while the sun shines. My question would be for Anand and Anand, the two experts who can add on a view from manufacturer or technological point of view. I would begin with Anand. So Anand, technology has played a major role in the pandemic, and at the same time, manufacturers have consistently been launching new products. So has the share increased during the pandemic or from the last few years, considering the growth in the gaming? And also, what are the growth drivers for the PC market in comparison to the international market?
Morning, everyone. Your question about has the gaming accelerated after pandemic? If you look at it, gaming has been with the evolution of customers, as we have heard from other speakers. Gaming as such has been driving growth for PC industry for 4-5 years, like Girish mentioned some time back, right? And especially in last year, with the way our lives got impacted, adoption of PC as such got really accelerated, and consumers used it for learning, for creating, and even gaming became an important element in the scenario that we were living in. So the acceleration of market and the gaming as such has really doubled in last 1 year, if I would say. So that's the impact it has had. So today, about 13% of the overall notebook market is gaming, and that has doubled over 1 year. From our point of view in Dell Technologies, we were looking at these trends, and when people are spending time on a device which is going to serve learning, creation, as well as entertainment purpose, they're looking for one device which serves all these needs. So from our side, our new launches which have been doing, they are addressing these needs. We have products like Alienware, which is specifically addressing for enthusiasts and evolved gamers who are looking for esports, etc., as a serious career. And at the same time, we have another brand called Dell G Series, which is addressed towards the customer who has been currently using, let's say, a mobile as an entry space, and then their needs have been evolving, and as they get more and more serious about playing, like Doctor was talking in the previous session, gaming is used for skills. It is used for social interaction, and in that context, as the esport as such is improving, we have this product Dell G Series, which helps the customer evolve from the mobile phone to the PC, where they are able to use the great experience that a PC provide in terms of performance, as well as unique feature where they are able to get better control to drive their need satisfaction.
Thank you, Anand, for that perspective. And Anand, my same question is for you. So has there been any increase in the number of products during the pandemic, and any strategy change which you would like to discuss, keeping in mind the instant boom the pandemic has brought for the gaming industry?
Sure. Thank you, Ashwini, and good morning to everyone. So I think everybody can see in the past 1.5 years, especially after the pandemic, so the demand for the gaming PC has increased dramatically. Just to echo to Anand just mentioned, in the past 1 year, the gaming PC industry almost doubled the number. And even looking at this year, we see this year will even grow at least 50-60%. So the demand for a gaming PC become very huge. And there are a few reasons behind it. One is, of course, when people are staying at home. So earlier, maybe you will spend lots of time to go outside to play with your kids, or maybe you go out for sports. When you are locked down at home, you may spend more time with your TV, or you will play games. So this is also one of the reasons that when people has limited time to go outside, they will spending more time with their gaming device. And apart from this, it's also related to the work from home, study from home demand. So nowadays, the customer, when they go to buy a PC, they also want to prefer to buy a laptop that's more powerful because they don't want to just buy for their work or buy for only for study. They can choose a better configuration or a better laptop brand, which can help them not only doing for their work, but also can use for the entertainment after the 6 p.m. So what is the strategy we have here is, so we will not only focus on gaming because we know the multitasking is very important. So in our entire gaming series, we have tried to introduce different concept of the device to cater to different segments. For example, recently we have launched our latest ROG X13, which is a convertible gaming device with an external graphics card. What is the target customer here? Because we know there are still lots of customers they are going outside majorly, but maybe when they come back at home in the evening, they still want to play games. But when they go outside, they don't want to carry the heavy gaming device. They still want to have a portable PC. So this kind of concept which make us to create one convertible gaming device. And also for the entry-level gamers, we have our VivoBook Gaming. For the mainstream gamers, we have a Street series or Top series. So what we try to do is we want to have different segments to cater into different needs. Because currently the entire market becomes so huge. So previously, maybe when we talk about gaming laptop, we are talking about those super professional gamers. But now when we talk about gaming device, we are more talking to the people who is more multitasking usage, or they want to play the games just after their work time. So the strategies, we will try to enlarge our lineup and try to cater more and more customers in this broader concept of gaming.
Thank you, Anand. So now we have spoken about the growth drivers, also the technological perspective from the experts. But when there is so much happening in the space, the industry would still need an impetus from the government to foster the growth of the industry. My question would be for Roland. So the government is also understanding the need to push the gaming ecosystem. Roland, where do you see it headed? Are there enough efforts being made by the government, industry, and industry bodies like yourself? And what have been the practices implemented by AIGF to ensure the growth of the gaming industry?
Morning, Ojasvi and my co-panelists. So I'll take the latter part first. At the AIGF, obviously, we could do what is the next best possible. So since the industry is self-regulated, we ensure that there are best practices that are governed by the charter, and then there's an audit process that kind of looks at it. We are partnering with Arthur D. Little there, so that takes care of the the membership side, the business side, and as a federation, we are business focused. We are interested that there's a there's a properly self-regulated market. And as the panelists also mentioned, that there is the entire ecosystem has tremendous interest, right from the investors to the gaming platforms and businesses. Now, to support that, ours is an enabling mechanism and process. It has worked well over the last 6 years, and of course, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Now, our target audience obviously are the executive, the lawmakers, and the judiciary. So practical steps that, as the IGF, what we do is we look at, firstly, obviously, to help educate the executive on, creating awareness about why the online skill gaming industry is, as Girish mentioned, the sunrise industry needs support. And I'm happy to say that we've got a lot of support from several state executives. At the center also, the think tanks like the Niti Aayog and even Invest India, bodies like Invest India have been very supportive. And, we are working closely with most of them. However, there are, as Girish said, there is no entry barrier in the judiciary also. There is no entry barrier, so anybody, can file a PIL on a lot of matters that this industry has seen over the last, in my experience, about 8 to 10 years. And we have to take those matters up and, fight on behalf of the industry, which we are doing as we speak. Some of those are due for judgment, Madras in this case, next week. So we are, positive that And we have seen that, even the judiciary is well aware of, the differentiation. I will talk about the challenges when you ask me next in the next line of questions. But these are some of the things that we try and do, and help the businesses and our member stakeholders to have clarity on the markets that they operate in. Thanks.
Rolling with that, I would also like to ask Manav and Pawan your take on real money or skill-based gaming and its future, as Roland rightly mentioned, that anybody can file the PIL. So your take on real money or skill-based gaming and its future of its legality in the country. And how do you think the skill-based companies should comply with the respective stated guidelines? Also, what are some of the ways the skill-based companies can come up to a safe platform for its users, considering the concern of the government?
Sure. So I think from overall skill-based RMG vertical standpoint, right? Almost all of us who are part of a self-regulatory body like TOF or like AIGF or anyone else, we have a lot of checks and balances in place, right? We allow people to sort of put daily limits. We allow them to say, hey, if you don't want to play for next 2 months and want to have a cooler, do that, right? We do a lot of KYC checks. We do a third-party audit, from top 5, consulting firms or audit firms, right? So, but beyond all of this, if you are talking about the regulatory scenario, I think all of us have spoken in the past that there is a latent need of harmonization of state laws and the central laws, right? They both can't be divergent. The moment they become divergent, not only it takes away the predictability of how you would want to invest your capital, right? It also sort of takes away the interest from the capital which is waiting from a sector standpoint to come into this play, right? If you look at it from a consumer standpoint, right, from a normal Joe, so far as he's not cheated, so far as the platform has laid out or convinced that there is no collusion happening, there is no cheating happening, and you have all the checks and balances in place. A consumer, for him, RMG is not only a scalable leisure option, but it is a scalable option to sort of enhance his skill, right? And that is where it is a multiplier effect. And I think that's the play where government, needs to understand and sort of bring about those changes that any of us in this, play are yearning for, right? Today, if you ask me, whatever the law of the land mandates us to do, right? All of us almost who are part of these agencies are doing it, right? We would be very happy for someone to come out and say, hey, you know what? You have been doing 5 things, do these 10 more things to ensure that there is more, trust building, there is more transparency, and we will, do it all.
Pawan, what do you think about that?
As far as Vinzo is concerned, right? I mean, just to sort of set some context here, we are a platform and we partner with third-party game developers, right? We have partnered with, you can say, we have about 70 plus games. We partner with about 40 plus game developers. And while some of them are globally very, very large, recognized game studios, some of these guys are in fact, building some of these games out of their dorm rooms, right? Indie studios, everything. And what we have really created as a platform is an avenue for them to very effectively monetize their game that they were earlier unable to via Google Play Store. And in a way, monetization, no matter what you say, but monetization is fairly critical for any business, for any industry to really thrive. And with us being able to now offer not just monetization, but we have gone ahead and actually, launched a game developer fund for them, which is like worth about $20 million, where we actually invest in these gaming startups. We fund some of these projects. And of course, that would attract better talent, that would attract sort of an, overall stronger wave for better content to be created for the Indian masses, right? All of that is fairly linked to each other. And we personally feel that the way, like I mentioned in my previous, address as well, we are playing the big numbers game here, right? We have 50 million registered users. We have, let's say, more than 15 million monthly active users. I mean, we probably, would be earning less than $200 per person per month. That's actually cheaper than a price of a movie ticket. that's probably the most cost efficient, economical way for somebody to entertain themselves. They got probably 20 hours worth of entertainment in a month, which is still cheaper than some of these OTT subscriptions that they pay for. So we are building Winzo, with this mindset. Of course, there has to be a clear-cut differentiation, like Roland mentioned, like Manav mentioned, and we are all up for that. We are, of course, part of all the self-regulatory bodies here. We are, also working in the background to really see how we can differentiate. There should be clear differentiation between, what exactly. In fact, I mean, one is of course between skill gaming and non-skill gaming, but also within skill gaming games, what is the real impact of? I'm very sure, when as you tweak on the dial here, I mean, a chess can probably be more skill-based game than, let's say, some other game. And we are all up for, in fact, going ahead and differentiating it at that level. And I think that's where the future is, so that there is enough clarity for everybody to sort of ensure that folks who are really working towards building an ecosystem, ensuring that the industry really thrives, are able to do so, right? And of course, we would be relying on several state governments and central government to achieve that.
I would agree to that, Pawan. We have spoken about RMG games. We spoke about our expectations from government bodies and industry bodies. Now, I would like to speak. No, I'm not speaking about challenges now. Let's speak about a way forward. Girish, I'm coming to you on that. Compared to the global markets, online gaming in India is still at a very nascent stage. So, while the country has the second highest number of gamers in the world, its average revenue per user is still quite low compared to even other developing and comparable markets. So, what can be the possible reasons for this? Also, what can be a way forward for the gaming industry to deal with all this? And we all here are listening very profusely, an actual way forward. So, over to you, Girish, please.
So, I think a lot of the speakers till now have touched upon some of these elements, right? And I think we try and sort of bring some of the elements together. So I think at fundamental level, one thing we have to be very, very careful about, right? We have this tendency to compare some of these metrics in India and globally, and I say that okay, R2 in India, I think let's step back a second and look at any sector, right? Any consumption sector, Indian levels are very low global ones, right? Whether it's telecom, whether it is digital consumption, whether it is television or cable, everywhere are low. And I think that's the fundamental reality of how Indian market is. That doesn't mean that you make money. It just means that you what is a great monetization opportunity. How do you go about doing it needs to be different when you compare with a lot of the Point two that I would also mention is that, again, globally there is a reason why they gaming operate at a very high ARPU level, and that's fundamentally got to do with the culture of console PC gaming, right? Where you have very deep penetration of console and PC gaming when it comes to the gaming universe, which invariably has lent itself to very high levels of monetization because that's inherently the kind of product they have. In India, that universe has been relatively limited for a while now, and it's probably recently we start to see those universes. But to a large extent, it's been a certain subset of users who tend to revolve around in India, which effectively meant that the large set of users who have come on board the last 5 years are not. Firstly, they're just new gamers, and secondly, they didn't really have a history of paying for gaming as a mode of playing. So I think those 2 points need to be kept in mind when you look at why users are going to when you start forward, right? Obviously, the intention, like Pawan mentioned earlier, you've got to look at ways of how you can monetize, and that's the viability of any. But here, I think we've already worked on some ways we start from this, right? For example, transactions that right? Or social engagement, or elements around, for example, right? We can do, if you look at it, India still, like a lot of digital businesses, is driven by advertising and game, right? Now, a lot of the advertising is taken by foreign titles and foreign studios, but the reality is that it does tell you that the Indian market need to be explored in that direction also. Maybe something like one of the things that we do think will help in this case is the whole aspect around advertising, and that linked with a far deeper leveraging of AI, I think will genuinely help brands monetize the user base much better than that today. I think that's another element. And I think the last point is, as the titles grow more and more customized to Indian psyches and Indian users, right? And as the access and the user experience becomes more and more, relevant for Indian users, I think in maybe we will see the products get monetized better. Like we've already started to see that happen in OTT, where 3-4 years back, while we did nobody really willing to pay money. We started to see that change, subscription models evolve in OTT over the last 2 years. And I think as the gaming ecosystem starts maturing in terms of the user experience and the user behavior, that element will come into play. Last point I will also mention, again, I think this is going to come back to what Pawan mentioned on the Windows side. I think the whole concept of multi-platform works very well for Indian consumers, and the ability to therefore monetize the platform is a very unique and a very relevant way to look at the Indian market as compared to on select games and that. I don't think that doesn't work, but I'm just saying that even India's intensity to consume at scale wide array of choices, I think that's another area which will sort of enable monetization as we go forward.
We are running short on time and we have just 10 minutes left. I'll just quickly move to Anand and Anand. So since we are speaking on the way forward, your thoughts on coexisting with competition and growing the overall ecosystem. How is gaming enabling a homogeneous ecosystem for all the stakeholders alike? And how are you ensuring your target audience in a price-sensitive market like India? Anand and Anand, over to you. Thank you.
Interesting question, but let's look at it like this. With Alienware as a brand, Dell has been in the forefront of, let's say, shaping the gaming industry for more than 25 years now. So our designs have been setting the trend in the gaming industry. Our core belief is that gaming is a great unifier, especially in the current time, irrespective of what age, gender, demographics you are. Gaming brings people together. We have our fair share in the industry, but our belief is that if we all work to grow the ecosystem, everybody will have space to grow. And we've been a trusted brand in country for a long time now, and that has helped us to grow the market. How we do that is by partnering and doing the outreach program with various players in the system. We have programs like Campastor and Futurist, where we partner with colleges. We reach out to youngsters. We conduct sessions for them. We are sponsors for Team Brutality, and they go and then educate, let's say, youngsters on how to play gaming. Gaming as such, like some previous session speakers were talking about, that people are getting more and more into the gaming. The very fact that you have this great session happening for full day on this topic shows the kind of importance that this sector has got. And that's where we as a hardware player are partnering with the ecosystem players to reach out to customers and enabling them to learn more about gaming, not just as a consumer, but also as a career option, and what else they can do and how they can grow and be part of this thriving industry. So that's how we are contributing.
From ASUS side, I think I also echo to what Anand just mentioned, because the overall ecosystem is very important. So since India is still in a very fast growing stage in the overall gaming industry, so I believe there are with more and more players put the investment dedication in this ecosystem, it will help to grow faster the overall gaming in India. And how ASUS and ROG as a brand to contribute here is, since we know we are the hardware provider, but we don't want to just be selling the machines in India. We also want to see how we can contribute a bit to grow this overall ecosystem. So since last year, we due to the lockdown, we couldn't do the offline events. So we started the online gaming tournaments. So every week we choose one game title, and we work with our agency to do the weekly gaming tournament across India via the online gaming tournament. And apart from this, what we also initiated this year is we initiated a project, we call it ROG Academy. So what we did is we want to provide a platform for the gamers who want to become a professional gamer. They want to pursue gaming as their profession, but they don't know how to do it. So with the ROG Academy, every quarter, we call it the season 1, season 2. So right now we are already in season 2. So every season we have 5-6 top players across India, and then we provide our gaming machines. We provide them a professional coach, and we give them 90 days proper training. And then after 90 days, we also try to help them to approach the professional teams to align them for the future career in this professional gaming. So I think the key is the ecosystem, because with more and more players coming in, so no matter from us, like we are from the hardware company or from software, from the game titles, more and more people coming in, I believe this will help to grow this ecosystem faster.
Thank you, Arnold. And I guess we have few minutes left. I would really like Roland to answer one of my questions. I do have so many questions in mind, but the time is we are running short on time. So Roland, I think the need to have an answer to this question is applicable to everyone within and outside the ecosystem. So what can actually be the gap between the gaming industry and the talent required? Also, what role can the industry play unanimously in facilitating a suitable ecosystem for the gaming industry?
I think for like any other sector, media, entertainment, OTT, etc. There are there is enough talent here. I'm told that the online gaming industry will generate about 40,000 to 50,000 jobs in the next maybe 2-3 years. So that's a significant number. Inherently, as Indians, we are good in in the software side and in the technology side, and also in the creative side, and that's why maybe. So I think Pawan and Manav will know this better, but for this entire industry, you need the crux of the business lies in acquiring customers and then retaining those customers, and that's why that kind of talent is readily available. But maybe in the specialized side, in game development, that's where I think we are better equipped as Indians, given our tech background, expertise and creativity. And I think even in those specialized game creation, which is applicable for esport formats, maybe it is available, and that's why that number that I mentioned at the outset, I think it's a significant job creation number for the industry. And I think with newer platforms like Winzo, Octo, and MPL, so many of them that is enabling the entire ecosystem to grow. And I think we use that as one of the positives that the sector, apart from the GST revenues to the exchequer, the job creation itself, and the other socio-economic benefits that accrue from this industry. So to accord it its status of a sunrise industry, and then really support it, and that's what we are seeing a lot of people do. But we are hopeful that going forward it really this industry would go the way maybe how OTT has gone, and be an enabler in the very near future.
Since Roland mentioned Pawan and Manav, so can you just go quickly summarize?
So I think what Roland mentioned is absolutely true, right? industry today has all the sort of key ingredients for it to take it from level 1 to level 2, right? And my belief is that the number that we are hearing, which is about 4.5 billion, it'll be possibly 40% more than that, looking at the pace that we are, progressing. I mean, never ever in the past a South Korean IPO company is talking and focusing so much about India, right? And that is the key on their roadmap. And we've seen how PUBG has grown in this country. We've seen how, kids in the pandemic have latched on to games like Roblox, Among Us, and, the ilks of that, right? We've seen how studios out of India have had a M&A opportunity globally, right? So none of these existed if we were talking about this maybe even 1.5, 2 years ago. So I think we have all the right key ingredients in place. It is largely about what extraneous factors, both from the regulatory perspective, clarity of the regime perspective, and largely from the perspective of capital that is waiting to come to these, gaming platforms so that we can grow and acquire more users, right? If you look at China's growth in gaming, right, it actually plowed back all that revenue that the gaming companies sort of built back into the ad tech sector, right? How, the way Roland was saying that for both consumer acquisition and as well as for the retention, that is where the money goes. So it's like a ecosystem which continues to flourish when one of the key pillars of that ecosystem continues to grow. And I think that's what we should be aiming to do as a, ecosystem.
So I'll just add, in the paucity of time, I'll talk at a very first principle level. See, at the end of the day, for the success of any sector, right, for the success of any industry, for the success of any mission, it's really the people. It's really the kind of people that join that mission, that join that sector, that join those companies in that sector, that really makes all the difference. And we at Winzo very, very strongly believe in that. It's a totally people-centric company, right? I mean, we are less than 100 people. And trust me, I think the kind of scales that we have achieved, the kind of volumes that we work with, the kind of nuanced problems we solve on a day-to-day basis, it's all protein, right? I mean, the entire company is only tech data product, right? And our like the way we are thinking about it is, for next 10 years, gaming is really the sunrise sector. I mean, there are several multi-billion-dollar gaming companies in the West, in US, in China, right? Not one, not two, but more than 10 companies which are probably valued at $15-20 billion. And now the time has come because India right now is talking more like the maximum engagement. It has the highest number of mobile games downloaded. There will be several multi-billion-dollar enterprises that will be built over next 10 years. And, having investors like Makers Fund, Griffin Gaming Partners, Courtside Ventures, on our cap table, all these are very large international gaming investors, right? And all of them have invested in India through Winzo for the first time. That in itself signifies how important the Indian market is, how important this sector is. And it's really upon the kind of talent this sector is now able to attract to really shape up this sector, right? So the time has come when the best of the best talent, the best of the best, top IITs, other top institutions, gaming companies should literally be considered as the dream jobs for people. And if we are able to achieve that, then everything else is a cakewalk from there.
Thank you, Pawan, and thank you, everyone. I wish this session keeps on going. Well, we are running out on us. Time is running out on us, and I don't have a chance to get answers to all my questions. So let me conclude by thanking all of our members of the panel for, I thought, really excellent insights onto the question that were raised. Thank you, Roland, Girish, Anand, Manav, and Pawan